All right, well, thank you for coming. I know some of you are not even on duty anymore. Appreciate you being here. I don't anticipate being here a long time, but that will depend on the amount of discussion, obviously.
I just count how many people.
I'm also sorry that I didn't get the information out to you in advance like typically I do.
Yeah, you broke the law.
I know I did.
We have
In terms of the agenda, if you would look at that page, relatively short, and we can, if there are things that you want to add to the agenda, we certainly can. The things that I had first, we want to approve the minutes, obviously. Eric sent to me something he wanted to discuss about high school graduation issues. Possible change to the bylaws concerning negotiations. That's one of your handouts, so we want to at least broach that subject. All of these today are going to be just information. I don't want to have any votes until we get to next year, but just so things can be thought about over the summer. And then there's a parking lot list that I know there have been more things that have been mentioned that I didn't get on there, but we'll try to make a complete parking lot master list before we get going. So is there anything that people would like to add to the agenda right now? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Anyone opposed to approving the agenda as presented? I'm going to take that as a no also. If you would take a minute and glance at the minutes, or 2 minutes to glance at the minutes, whatever it takes. Hi, Julie.
Well, if she's late, she doesn't get copies.
Late and unprepared.
You're awesome.
That's 2 strikes, Julie.
I left the whole thing at work.
You've been a busy lady. I didn't know you were going but you're
Yeah, we got to change the name tag.
Didn't have time to do that.
Well, he's going to be secretary for everything.
Yeah,
Bro.
Aaron.
He complained enough about it that I'm going to make him a secretary. The only person that sees it is him. Nobody else sees it because it's his letter gets on telling it.
Okay, anybody see anything on the minutes that you feel like are inaccurate? All right, well, we are flying through the agenda. Okay, Eric, talk to us about your concern, whatever it was, with graduation.
Okay, I've got a couple items here that were regarding graduation. One of which is something that has been mentioned to me multiple times throughout the past few years about students who attend Central, Lafayette, or Benton, but then due to grades or whatever the reason may be, transfer to Webster. When they are done with Webster, they still graduate walking across the stage with that home school. But they haven't spent the majority of their time there. They did not actually finish at that school. So the concern that a lot of people have is that really holding those students accountable for the same things that their counterparts are. So their counterparts are going through traditional school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, at that school, upholding the requirements that that school holds for them, and they get the privilege of walking at graduation with that school. Why do we let, and should we let, students who maybe in some cases make a conscious effort to fail classes, which I have been directly told by students before is the case, I'm just going to fail this class because they'll let me go to Webster.
or behavior issues.
Or behavior issues. And regardless of what the situation is it right that those students have the privilege? Because walking at graduation is a privilege. Getting your diploma is not. Getting your diploma is earned. But getting to walk at graduation is a privilege. So therefore, should those students be allowed to walk with a school that they have not been associated with? Or should they walk with at the graduation of Webster, which Webster does have a graduation ceremony for their other programs as well. So should they be at that school, regardless of what the diploma says, because I understand that Webster is not actually a classified school or something to that effect by DESE, so their diploma would still go through the original school, which is not the issue. The issue is the privilege of walking at graduation.
Okay. You want to just take one issue at a time? You said you had several.
That was one, yeah, let's just go with that one first.
Okay. Comments, anyone? I have no dog in this fight. I really have no opinion yet.
I think students that have, I mean, maybe Webster needs their own graduation ceremony because they aren't, like you said, they're not doing the same thing as those students at the other ceremonies. They're still earning their degree, but they're not holding the standards to the schools.
Well, and I would just say, I think probably when they leave one of the 3 high schools, they've lost the respect. So what's gonna bring that respect level to the graduation? Because we did, I mean, elephant in the room, I don't know if you guys know, but at the Central graduation, a kid did a backflip off the stage, landed on his behind, so that was perfect, but still, you know, because very uncalled for. Not, and kids do crazy things at graduation ceremonies, but,
is he suspended from
you know,
school for
so
doing that?
what is the,
Indefinitely.
so what I'm trying to say is, okay, that was very disrespectful to the other kids and to their ceremony. So if we've removed them from that setting, then when we bring them back into that setting, what is it that we think will make them respect that
Right,
tradition?
exactly.
So,
Very valid concern.
Someone help me. We have lots and lots and lots of things in writing in this district, some of which I'm aware of, some of which I'm not. Does anyone know about, is there something in writing that says Webster students are entitled, allowed, encouraged to attend?
I think it's probably
Is it-
to encourage them to finish and graduate.
Oh, absolutely.
They're
We want them to
probably,
graduate.
that probably is one of their stipulations, so they, you know,
Yeah.
if you finish your program and you graduate on time, then we're gonna allow you to walk in.
Do you know,
Do you
Paul,
know,
is there
Paul?
something in writing? or
I'm
is
sure
it-
there is, we'd have to look, and that'd really be a good question, like Terry Godfrey,
Yeah.
does policy, procedure.
By its
policy.
definition, it's an alternative school, alternative path to conventional. So it's, you can look at this from both sides, because the cognition out in the public is, you earn a diploma, you should walk. I don't think people out in the public eye separate the two, even though it is a
Right.
privilege,
It is.
and I understand that fully.
So if I finish my 4 years at Central High School, I should be allowed to walk with Benton High School.
Well,
And
I think.
It's all within the
same-
same district.
Well, and I
so-
know parents
so-
are gonna want
but that's
to
not
see their
gonna be the
kids walk.
case.
I mean, that's gonna be a
Of
parental
course.
issue.
Well, and maybe
And
this
it's
would
not an issue.
incentivize the idea that you stay and do not go into the alternative program. Because I think that there is right now an incentive for the kids who just really don't want to be there or have a behavior issue to leave and go to the alternative program, because it's all going to end up the same in the wash for them anyway.
And if a student goes to Webster for whatever reason, because I know there's a variety of very legitimate reasons why they go, but then they come back to Central, they come back to Lafayette, they come back to Benton, their last
Different
year,
story, yeah.
they have finished their program at Central or at that school. So therefore, they obviously will walk with that school. It really comes down to, and I think if it's not in writing, what should be in writing is where you finish your program is where you walk.
Is where you graduate, since they do have a Webster graduation. And so you could very legitimately even present that to parents.
Yes.
And they could, you know, I mean,
Because it's not, we
how
don't want
could
to
they
take away a
disagree?
graduation from the
Exactly.
parents, because of course, we want them to be able to, celebrate what their student has done.
But I think that needs to be very clear when
Yes.
those kids go to that program. I mean, that just needs to be somewhere in the handbook or whatever, but they need to be clear on that so that there aren't any questions about it.
And that would be a powerful incentive
Of
to
course.
get back into your school, finish in your school.
Right.
Or maybe not to leave to begin with.
Yeah, yeah.
If they really want to graduate, because some kids want to graduate because their parents did or their brothers and sisters did, and so they don't want to be the one that doesn't. And that would be the more positive incentive. So do you want to take that to policy?
This half the table, what do you think?
Yeah.
There's a couple things, just information. The reorganization of Webster for next year, and having kids at the junior and senior level go into the Missouri Options Program. If there is a Webster graduation, I'm not aware of one. I've asked that question, do we have one? But if that's the case, if you graduate from Missouri Options, it could be a Missouri Options graduation. But when kids go to Webster, they are still classified as Central Benton.
Right.
So if we were gonna make a shift, we would need to make Webster be its own school.
And And I don't know.
Oh,
that
it
they can do
cannot
that.
be.
And I don't think it can, yeah.
No, excuse me, we do not want that to happen, because I'm sorry, I walked in the right time, because their scores and stuff would be so low, it would cause us problems with DESE. That's why they're sent back to their local schools. I do know this, I've heard this many times.
So it's something that we have been discussing in our office. Could there be something, so I think it's definitely something to keep on the table for next year. But we are.
So you're saying if they go the Missouri options, you could have a Missouri options graduation and that would be their graduation? Or you're still saying do that and have them go back to their home school?
Just the Missouri options.
Just the Missouri
The
options?
diploma though
Because we're
comes from
trying
the
to-
district, right?
What's that?
The diploma actually comes from the district, not from the school.
I haven't seen
I
one.
don't
Right.
know.
Well, I don't know,
I mean, they'll-
Missouri options is not a,
I'm
They'll say the high school on it, though.
Let's say the high school,
It's
but
a-
is it the school district
It's
that
the
issues
school
it or the
district
school
issues
that
it.
issues it?
it's,
I think Eric's argument also ties into differentiated diplomas. I mean, are you earning the same thing
Right.
as,
Right.
you know?
When
this-
you're not putting in the same time and same
Yeah.
coursework.
So I think that's a discussion, I think that Dr. Hubbock's willing to, I think that everyone, you know.
There's a
they're
lot of
having-
factors.
They're having, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on with so many issues with that. Are we gonna change differentiated diplomas, you know, changing the
Yeah,
grading scales,
Right.
changing?
There is no
Are we going to
legal
the Latin
property
system instead of
interest.
class rank? I mean, there's a lot of factors at play right now.
so I have just a question here while we're on this. Why are we talking about that here? That doesn't have anything to do with salary and negotiations, does it?
It's
Well,
just
we deal with
district
that.
concerns.
Policy
This is a
and
district
Yeah, but
concerns.
wouldn't that come up at your superintendent's dialogue? Not necessarily
Well,
here.
It could come up a number of places.
Can it? Okay. Well, it just seems like that's odd, because it's not a personnel
Well,
thing.
we talked
Well,
about quite a few things.
Did
on
you
it,
have
really.
Yeah.
any,
We talked
did
about
you
other
have
kids'
particular complaints then, maybe, or?
I've had multiple
Concerns?
complaints and
From
concerns
staff or from parents or from
staff
both?
and other parents.
But Wes
It's-
is
it's all
correct, this
across-
doesn't dial
it's
back
all
to
across.
specific, our specific.
And even other
core.
students who have said to me, that's just not fair. They chose to leave, they chose to fail, and that's not all of the students, so I don't wanna put that out there. It's not all the students that go to Webster that choose to fail, but the ones that do, it really frustrates the other students that they get to come back and sit right next to them and walk across that stage like they've done everything that that other student has done.
Yeah.
And then some of those students brag about
Yeah.
leaving, because we went through it Sunday with Lafayette. And my son says, well, how did she get to walk when she left Lafayette a year ago?
Did you have a senior? Congratulations.
Oh, you
I
did?
know, yeah.
Did you look at the diploma? Does it just say the high school or does it say St. Joseph's School?
Does it say St.
It
Joseph-
says Lafayette High School on it,
St. Joseph, Missouri.
yeah. But, I mean, my own son, who I didn't really think observed that kind of stuff, he brought it up. He goes, how does she get to walk? He goes, I stayed here all 4 years, and he goes, in some classes he did struggle in, but he made it. And then she was bragging about how, oh yeah, I dropped out and I went to Webster and I still got to walk, and her classmates they're all just kind of looking at her like, wow. So
And
I
then
mean,
we have-
others.
What does that send to our other students?
Right.
What message does that send? So I think it's more, it goes beyond that individual student who has gone to Webster. It really comes down to the climate. What climate does that set for the rest of our students? I'm looking at it
Just
bigger
like we had the
picture.
explosion at Benton's graduation, his parents let off these
Poppers.
poppers and landed, one of them hit Mark Brucker in the head. But, yeah, it did, I mean, seriously, it could have hurt, could have put out an eye or something. But anyway, that child, I understand, they were so celebratory because that child barely, I don't even know if there was
It was
a
a
breath
squeaker.
between him squeaking through. But then that just was kind of really, you could tell in the crowd, people didn't appreciate it. The kids didn't appreciate it because sitting up there looking down. So, I mean, there are a lot of things to consider. What's respectful to the majority of the
Yes.
kids, instead of keep protecting those few, let's think of the majority.
Now, I know it's gonna be months till we meet again after today. Like I said, I would rather not make any decisions
Right.
today, but
That's
just
fine.
keep these things going. Paul, would you be willing to talk to Terry? You said she might have a good handle on
We'll
if
find
there
it.
is something in writing
Yeah, we'll
about
find it.
that. And in terms of the rest of you, I don't know, Eric, if you would wanna maybe write up a proposal, something you think would wanna be done in lieu of them walking with
Of course.
their respective schools.
Well, I think
That-
we need to have Chris chime in on that, Chris Update.
Yeah, and that would,
Yeah,
I mean, that would be
of
a place to start our discussion next year. on the topic with having the information about what's in writing right now and what we want to head toward. Any other comments on that topic before we find out? Yeah, I'm going to come back to him in a second. On this one before we move on? Okay, what else, Eric?
All right, the only other thing that, and this is something that could also be looked at as a parking lot item for next year, but this is something that ties in with graduation. I just want to make sure that we as a district are doing things correctly and appropriately for our graduating students or graduating seniors, and making sure that the credits that they receive are correct, and that we're not substituting a non-core subject for a core subject that they've maybe failed to help them graduate. So I don't know if there's any policy that's written on this, but I feel like this is something that needs to be looked at. So there has been some discussion throughout the staff about this happening, and I don't want this, I want to clear it up first of all to make sure that it's not, but if it is, I want to make sure that it's stopped. So we need to take a look at that, and I'm happy to meet with you and talk with you about that as well.
Do you feel like you have firsthand knowledge of this, or you've heard rumors?
I have individuals who, I have an individual who directly spoke with me about this situation.
See, and I
And
think
it's
that would be
one of
something
their
you'd want to
students.
go see Dr. Hubbick
Yeah.
about that.
What happened now?
In a
So
former,
we're not, of course, like I said, this is not something that necessarily needs to be discussed as a group here, but if this becomes a policy issue, then I wanted us to be aware that this might be something we need to talk about later.
in a former life, I had a lot of experience with that, so let me kind of frame the situation for us. I was a high school counselor for many years, 75, 80, I can't remember. Every school has to submit to the NCAA and to other places what classes are meet core requirements for math, science, social studies, etc. You can't give core credit for anything that is not on that approved list. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying there are courses not on those lists that were substituted and given core credit.
That's what I've been informed.
Okay. You and I need to talk
Okay.
privately. Because we need to check into that. I mean, that's an ethical, legal issue, not.
And that was
Not just,
that was one of my questions.
Yeah.
Is it ethical? Is it legal?
No, and the answer to both of those would be no.
No. Okay, thank you.
So yeah, get with me sometime and
I hope that it's,
yeah, hopefully that's an errant rumor, but, okay. Anything else on that? I mean, to me, that's a black and white. If we're doing it, we're gonna stop immediately. Hopefully it's not accurate information. Okay. Anything else on your list?
for me, no.
All righty. I wrote that on the parking lot list. Possible change to the bylaws concerning negotiations. That was on one of the pages, 4 pages that you got. You guys want me to introduce this? Shall I just go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. We had talked briefly, I think, with the 4 teachers in the room, and they had some hesitation, some reservations about this, and I'm going to have you guys express what those are here in just a moment. The perspective that we were coming from this is, if we're truly a united SJSD, we feel like in this group setting, it is united. Everybody has pretty much an equal voice. When it comes to negotiations or meet and confer, which is the more accurate title, comes to the meet and confer, right now it's been just the teachers and the administrative group, and the classified staff has not participated actively in that. So our thought was that to be truly united, it would be good to draw some of the classified staff into that, because you do have an interest in the things that go along. The teachers, I know, have some concerns about that, and some valid ones. Go ahead and if you
Well, when
guys
we
wanna-
were writing this policy, that was brought up repeatedly, and administration was hesitant to even have this large a group at this table. And so it's hard enough to negotiate with 4 people than to add. So that's why it was decided to have this group as tell us everything, instead of having to go hunt down people, so we can fully negotiate. Because at one point that was discussed, hot and heavy.
I missed all.
Yeah, he did. And it was unanimously decided not to do that. And that was on both sides of the table, to not do that. Because it's hard enough to negotiate with 2 or 4 people on one side than to add more. So that was why it was decided that way.
Okay. Eric, anything to add?
This is our advisory committee.
That
I mean,
was
that's
the word
really
I
what-
was
That's
thinking.
really what this is. So the whole purpose of this entire group had to have the wonderful, valuable support or information from our support staff that represent everybody else. This is where we get all of our information. So this is truly a part of that process. It just makes it a little more clear and concise whenever we can take that information
Formalize
in
it.
from here, and then us just take it to that meet and confer tape.
Lori or Kyla, any thoughts? Go ahead.
I mean, I was not present writing this. I guess my knee-jerk reaction pretty much is what Eric is saying, is that, you know, this is advisory. And, because I was here in the meetings when we talked early on about the difference between this one and negotiations, and how difficult it would be in this large of a group to make negotiations. I don't know. I see that as an issue a little bit maybe from membership of organizations being a concern. I mean, if you end up doing that, then what's the point of having this committee? Right.
Well, I would say the point of having this group is because there's only 2 people here, and we have like, how many people on United SJSD?
8 people.
Yeah, so on United SJSD, we have everybody represented, and I mean, everybody by meaning, let me break down, secretaries, nurses, food service, whatever,
Because we didn't have that
IT.
type of advisory before.
Right, and so if you limit it to 2 people here, then you're not bringing everybody, you're bringing 2 support people. So it might be this maybe it's Julie, maybe it's Amy that are gonna come and be that. So that's the difference. Here, this is a United SJSD, everybody's at the table, it's an advisory group, most definitely. But when it comes time to negotiate, now, my knee-jerk reaction a year ago would have been, no, we can leave it. I'm okay with, you know, the NEA, MSTA, because they do represent their whole association, which includes
All of us.
everybody, certified and non-certified. But then I've seen how this has evolved, you know, this committee evolved, and the great thing, I feel like lots of good things came out of this year. And far more than I ever expected in the first year. And then I sat through negotiations with the teacher groups, but then I also sat through negotiations with NEA 2, which is the maintenance. Had to have been, how many people, 15 people? I mean, seriously.
Well, six at the table.
6 at the table, and, you know, and was there only 6, really?
7 counting Yvonne.
Yeah, 7 counting Yvonne, but I mean, it was a whole table, you know, and we did fine.
Yeah, but
Negotiating with that size of a group. So now, my concern isn't the size of the group, it's the makeup of the group. And do we want to include that perspective when we're negotiating? I don't know.
we
I mean, I'm
have
just throwing that
that
out there.
perspective, and it has to work past all of us.
Right.
It has to work after we're all gone.
That's exactly
It,
right.
And
it
it's another
washes
makeup
through
of
this group
people.
first, and so we get that feedback back and that input. And so
And-
we,
But you know, when we were writing the policy, none of us knew how this was gonna work. And we were
This wasn't even
concerned.
in existence.
No, and we were concerned that a group this large, we just weren't ever gonna get anything done. Well, I think we have proven that a lot of work has gotten done in a
Right.
group this size. And I think that we have done an excellent job with everybody having the opportunity to voice their opinions and feel free to do that and bring concerns. I think that this just kind of levels the playing field, and it just gives a bit more equity to our support staff as well. And I, if there's ever gonna be your, when you go and you have your little quorums or whatever, you take a sidebar, you're all gonna be in there together, and you're all gonna be working together. I mean, that's what we've been working for 2 years now, is for us to be able to work together as a group. I think that it just validates and gives a little more equity to the other people that are sitting at the table.
Amy, Julie's, what do you think?
I like the idea. I think it would make everybody feel a little more included. But I have to say, the clerical group got a huge raise, and we really didn't have, we had you guys representing us. We didn't have, I wasn't there, and so it worked fine that way also. I wasn't there pushing for that. You guys helped push for that, so, much appreciated.
Really, you helped push
we
for
were.
that
So-
at United SJSD.
Well,
Yeah.
it was
I think
approached
so then it
there
just went
and it
to-
went on. But, so I think the process can work both ways, but, so I'm wishy-washy on it, I guess.
What do you think, Julie?
Well, I kind of feel the same way she does. I mean, it's nice to be able to be a part of something and feel like you're included, because I know, a lot of the times in the past, we felt like, we weren't.
Right.
But at the same time, they've done a great job also. So I'm kind of the same way.
What are your thoughts, Amy?
I agree
Oh,
with
I'm
both
sorry,
of
Julie,
them.
were you done?
No, it's okay, I just want everybody to work together and get along, and, I don't wanna step on anybody's toes, but at the same time, we want our voices to be heard.
And you feel like yours have been heard just by having this committee formed? And obviously two of them were the negotiators, but, I'll tell you, I sat through those negotiations, they negotiate well, but you felt like you were,
Well, even to be able to sit in on it and hear it, is,
We did have a couple things that changed from what we talked about here that went to negotiate, that didn't filter back down to us. And so I was like, oh, I didn't know that happened. Oh, okay. So it was a little bit of surprise, and that was maybe in the first couple meetings.
Well, and that's not always
So-
on our end either.
True,
That's accurate.
true,
That's-
but that was something
That's
that's just something.
And that's a very good point. Sometimes when you're in that meet and confer setting and we have a game plan going in, but the game plan coming out is not always the same thing, because it depends on what the other side of the table throws back at
Right.
you.
And
So
I
then we
just-
have to think on our feet and decide what is in the best interest of all of the individuals that we represent.
And
Which is-
sometimes what we think is settled here, we get in that room and it's not settled.
because that's what negotiations are about, which makes me then believe that maybe it would be, changing my perspective, it would be beneficial, because when those things happen, you really don't know, and you don't have a support staff to say, what do you think the support staff would think of this?
Well, what they
And you
wanted
make a
wouldn't have
decision.
happened. I mean,
Huh?
that's what they wanted wouldn't have happened.
Well, you don't know, because we don't know the issue, we're going forward, what could the issue be?
Right.
There are times when you probably needed to consult or confer with the support staff, and there wasn't a support staff there to confer with because they're not in the negotiations. And so, that's something to think about too. And you saying that gave me that thought, just what you said.
What would the group you represent think, you think?
Professional technology.
Would they
Or
be interested?
clerical.
Oh, he's clerical, he's secretarial.
Clerical.
I don't have no idea,
It's May, isn't it?
I'm all for process efficiency, and fair representation. And I think that that's what we need to continue to focus on. We could divest the group as much as possible, or we could shrink the group as much as possible. But, as long as there's a voice that can convey from the group to the representative, to the negotiating team, that's the path that I'm interested in. And I'm interested in accomplishing things quicker and responsibly and so forth. And I made that clear a few months ago when I talked about
You are all
walking through
about
molasses.
expediency, Roy.
Yeah.
See it.
Because I think it's in everybody's best interest, plus it keeps us in a better frame of mind, and we don't get bogged down in the minutia of things, everybody grabbing for that little piece of the pie. If we can keep that collective mentality, I think it's good.
Paul, what do you think?
I think we voice our opinions strongly here, and I think these guys have a track record as long as these two groups are amicable and along. I think, and I've admired you guys. You guys have really been awesome working. I mean, I hear stories from the past where button heads and stuff, but you guys have really worked well together.
I've said that millions of times. I'm
And
thrilled.
I think when you guys have that clear focus together, you're fighting for everybody. I mean, I think our two groups fight for everybody. They do fight, and that's why it's good we have two groups too. They fight for everyone, and I think if you had so many of us in there, I think it would weigh down that you guys kind of sometimes are more experts at this. I mean, you guys kind of are as really, getting in there and talking stuff. But at the same time, I want people to be represented, but I think that when we voice it here, and then it's not like you guys are going back going, oh, screw them, or no, I don't
Celeste, do you have
Throw
any
them under the
wisdom?
bus.
Yeah.
Do you have any wisdom on this topic you'd like to share?
I'm not allowed to speak.
When has that ever stopped you before?
When does it stop me, right?
Michelle, what do you think?
I mean, I really don't have a dog in the fight, if you will, but just something that popped up as a possible, like, in the middle kind of thing, because we do have support staff that are members of the organizations, that it could be a classified and a certified MSTA member on the team, and a classified and a certified NEA member on the team, on the negotiation team. I mean, I just see Amy's NEA shirt, so.
It may just be borrowed, we don't know.
I don't know, that's just a thought, and then your team is still just 4 staff members on the negotiating team, but it would be
on that team, not them.
just a
It
thought.
was Todd's goodbye gift. Yep.
Oh, good.
Kidding.
Okay. Well, unless anyone else has any burning desire to comment, I think we've got kind of some initial feedback out in the.
Why fix it if it's not broken?
Is it, that was me, yeah. Is it obviously broken right now?
If somebody feels like it's broken, we need to.
The reason that I brought it up is I had several classified people, it was only 2, I'll just tell you, it was 2 out of 1,000, came and said.
So that's 2, a couple,
Yep.
not several.
Not several.
Okay.
Yeah,
One
Mr. English
had,
teacher.
but one of them had multiple personalities, so. I didn't-
Okay,
You
well,
have to count all of them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, it's
Glad that's
somewhere
coming from
between
HR.
2 and 8 is what we're.
2 and 8, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, said, is there a reason why classified people aren't a part of the meet and confer team? And I said, well, we'll ask. So, and I want to stress it was not a large number of people. Dose. Okay, so I brought it up, it's been brought up, we talked about it, we'll bring it back again in the fall and see, and arrive at a consensus.
And sometimes we have to play devil's advocate just to bring up all the possibilities of.
And I fully appreciate that, because if we don't, then
We
are
need to
we
make
really
sure
doing
we're
our due
looking at
diligence?
all the perspectives.
We just want to make sure that we continue to grow
Of course.
so that we're reaching everybody and taking care of everybody.
And so I think we achieved something else here just in this discussion. Because I really wonder if the support staff felt like they were supported, they were really being heard. Because sometimes, the teachers take over you know what I mean, depending on what the subject is. And so sometimes I think, man, we didn't talk very much about support staff stuff, But I hear at this table like, we've done well. You guys have done well by us. We're happy, we're satisfied, and that's another plus, I think, for this too.
Well, and I think Dr. Norman's got a valid point of, if something like that were to be the case, I think it needs to be equitable that, because there are support staff that are members of both organizations.
We pull one.
And that we pull one from each organization.
Or if you meant if we go through
If
the two.
If
I would like to see another year to see how well this plays out for 2 years in a row.
This is a
Honestly,
track record for sure.
to establish.
That would be my first choice, but.
This is undoubtedly the best year we've ever had, though.
It really is.
Hands down.
It really is. Be hard.
All right.
Good
Let's
discussion.
move on to the parking lot master list. And like I said, I know there have been things mentioned that I didn't get written down, so here's your opportunity to add to the list. I just wanted to give you just a brief explanation of some of these things that are on here. Most of you probably know, but the library facilitator, one of my goals, and I don't know if this will ever come to fruition or not, it'll depend on the funding. This is the only district that I've ever been in where not all librarians had library science certificates.
Thank you.
I think it's odd, maybe it's not, I've not been obviously in every district. And there's also some concern from some of those group, and if you have more information, because they're inside your mini group, some of them have said, we're certified teachers, we have a library science endorsement, why are we being paid hourly? Like, some of our people, I think, have the sub-certificate and maybe no
Especially
library
the
science experience. Now, this is at the elementary
Yeah.
level.
Because
It is only
secondary has
elementary.
their
It's
certificate.
only elementary.
It's only elementary.
Everybody, middle
And
school
my
on up.
understanding is in that as they retire, we're gonna fill those spots with
Well,
library science.
There are three
That
or
is
four.
my that's what I've
There's
been
been nothing,
told in
there's
the
been
past.
nothing decided.
Right,
Oh,
nothing's
okay. So
decided.
that hasn't been, I thought that
Yeah.
was, that's a
There's
discussion.
3 or 4
Oh, okay.
options. What I would like to see happen is that if we get the revenue stream that we hope to get, that the people who have their certification be paid as certificated
Yes.
employees. The ones who don't, I don't think it's fair to say, well, I'm sorry, you don't have a job anymore. I think we could say to them,
Your
we'll pay you,
grandfather.
well, your grandfather in will pay you hourly, but then when somebody retires or resigns, we hire them, replace them with a certificated person. So that's what that's
As we
about.
fill those spots.
Right,
Yeah.
because that was a huge concern of mine. Probably one of the very first conversations Dr. Cross and I had was, what the heck, and is this DESI approved? I mean, are we okay? And he looked into
Yeah,
it
we're
right
not-
away.
not
We're not
violating
breaking
anything.
any violations, but to me, it's as important that that elementary librarian be certified as it is secondary librarian, because there's a lot of learning that takes place in an elementary library, and
And
We
a
just
lot
need
of
to
our
have certified
facilitators
librarians.
do a great job.
they do, and that's
At
not
doing
anything
that,
against
yeah.
them. I'm just
But
saying,
yes.
yeah, especially
As
if
we
we're
fill those
looking to be.
positions as they retire and
And if
leave,
they
I
get
agree
that
that should-
certification, then could we then switch them from an hourly to?
Oh,
they
yeah,
would.
if they wanted to pursue the education to get the
They would
certificate,
be a
definitely.
they'd go on certificated staff.
I don't know, is there something that the district could do to help encourage them to do that?
You can always
Well,
encourage
we
them.
could say, yeah, your pay will double if you get the.
No
Right.
kidding.
'Cause
That
then
should
they
be
would be
encouragement
paid
enough.
as a
And-
teacher, correct?
And to tell you the
Yes.
truth, I'm sure years ago, and still even, right, the only place around anywhere near here is Warrensburg, Central Missouri State University, or whatever they call it now, University of Central, whatever, that you could get that library certification, and that wasn't convenient for people from St. Joseph. But now, there's so much that you can do online and things that there's almost no excuse to not have certified librarians.
Unless they're, they've been around and they're older.
I'm talking about
Yeah,
not
the new
grandfathering,
ones,
I'm
yeah, I
talking
agree.
new ones, yeah, that it would be our goal, because
Okay.
to me, that steps us up a little.
So that's the basis of that. The Webster thing we've already talked about. Shortened teacher days, I think basically to smash this down into a smaller size, I think the intent from the teachers was to ask, okay, instead of staying, is it 20 before and 30 after, or vice versa?
It's
20
either
before,
or.
okay.
Yeah, there's flexibility within
That,
coverage.
to
buildings.
allow teachers, maybe half of them come that earlier and leave a little earlier, and some come later, leave later, to discuss that in terms of shortening the actual contract day for the teachers. That's the essence of that, correct?
Really, it's to shave time off that contracted before and after. It's gonna depend upon buildings, what's needed for coverage.
Right.
But, when you have, if we're.
Yeah, and I think the intent was, let's talk about this, let's just not just say, no, we're not gonna do it.
Right.
The intent was
Right.
open the conversation,
Discuss it.
look for some
And we've been bringing.
possibilities, not that it will happen, not that it won't, but we just didn't want it to say, no, that, we can't do that and be done.
And there was time added to the days, and then we also added days back into the calendar, so.
Okay.
That would be
So that's the offset you're looking for?
that's one we're asking for, yeah. Because, it's become obvious that some of the other stuff we wanted wouldn't happen, so.
And then I remembered some discussion about graduate credit and perhaps using professional development hours towards salary schedule movement. I came from a district who did that. Now, any district I'm aware of, there's always a cap to how much you can move based just on professional development hours. I think that's certainly worth looking into. I've done a little research on corporations that will house all of that material for you and prepare the transcripts and that sort of thing. So that was the essence of that issue, correct? All right.
And what about graduate movement though, mid-year?
Nope.
That's,
Wes isn't here, so I'll speak for Wes.
okay.
That is a nightmare for, am I saying that right? That's a nightmare for our finance. I wouldn't ask a finance officer
Because we
to
have
do
done that for years.
It had been
It
years,
has been
yes.
done.
They had to know though in the beginning that was gonna happen.
The
It's
beginning
like,
of the year.
At the beginning of the year, they had to know it was going to happen, and then you had to submit that paperwork for it to go in effect January. So it's not like, hey, December, hey, guess what, I got this. And they knew about it and had that kind of set
And
up.
we're ready to do it.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it was like
because
a,
my background would
I
be
don't know what
no,
it looked like, but
heck
I
no.
know they had to know in the beginning that that was going to happen before they could move her, so then it wouldn't be that
A
last minute
surprise.
nightmare for finance.
But it's still a nightmare to do it in the middle of the year, but at least they knew about it.
It's a nightmare
Yeah.
too, so that
Yeah, but you have
sooner
6
they
months till
can
you start
get-
that, so you can still get to
they
the
can
end of the
start.
school
So
year.
what do we call this? Graduate
Yeah.
credit for horizontal movement?
Yes.
Mid-year is what
Mid-year.
you're saying.
I'd also like to add another note to that one is, what about, I know what the policy is now, but in terms of people who are doing two things simultaneously. Like, if you're earning graduate credit at two different institutions, for instance, I was earning graduate credit at Mizzou and Missouri Western at the same time, but because they're at the same time, I can't get the graduate credit for both things. Because I'm getting a master's at one place and just a certification at the other place.
So it's based on hours, so as you finish hours from each place, those hours
But my
can be applied.
certification will be done before before my master's, and so those,
Before
I'm
our
already at
master's is
master, I'm already at BA plus 16, and so those 16 hours that would hop me over almost to a master's, previous to this other master's, isn't gonna count for me, and it's a certification I'm paying almost $7,500 for out of my own pocket.
And there's another example of that is when you, and I just talked about this with someone, so you have your administrative degrees, you have your other specialist degrees, you have counseling degrees, and those degrees are not the same. There's different credit hours. So would it be possible that masters or 32 or 30? Because there are master's degrees that have a lot more credit requirements, and that way maybe people would hit that middle earlier. So what's in a admin?
Like, it used to be 32 hours and counseling was 36, and that's
Or
about the only
38,
difference.
yeah, something like that.
Like, you're only talking a couple of hours, 4
But there are
hours or
also
something, I don't know.
situations, so if I wouldn't be doing the two things simultaneously, I could have a master's in written communication and then the master's in gifted certification, I can actually go through and do that. But a couple of my courses are waived, and so it wouldn't bump me over like to master's 32 either. It wouldn't, even though I would have 2 master's degrees, I wouldn't be compensated.
And I wonder how many people are working on dual certification at one time in our district, like maybe you might be the only one, or
Well,
are
I
there
know that
others?
this has
or-
impacted people who were doing,
That's what
you know,
I'm
like an
asking.
administration degree and then they started a specialist at the same time, you know, things like that where because they're double dipping credit hours at one point, those kind of, they just flatten and you only get the one section or the one area.
But then
of
the
credit.
next year, would you be able to get the other, make the next move?
It depends on, what I was told was it depends on
What was waived.
when your master's graduation date is. And so because mine would be after my
When the
certification.
degree's awarded.
Yeah, when the degree's awarded.
Yeah.
And do we just do one movement per year? Or do we allow people to move, like, jump 2 columns?
They
I
can
know.
go, yeah, if they finish their degree, they
Then
can,
they can, okay.
yeah, if they go from a
that's
BS
also
to a master's in 1 year, yeah, they would
then
get,
you would-
yes.
Okay, I
It'd
just
be
want
kind of hard to do.
But, well, the only
I don't know.
time I've ever seen that
Mine, you can
happen
do
is when they
anything
forgot
now.
to turn it in the previous year. Yeah, I mean, because we only make movements once a year now.
Hey, you want to hear how really scary this is? I spoke for you. Does that make you nervous?
I don't care.
Okay. I won't
Okay,
tell you
so
what it is.
That was just a question I had because the simultaneous
Yeah,
credit
that's-
thing, it kind
That's
of, you
a
know.
good
It's a thing to
point.
think
I won't
So-
ever really recoup my certification, like what I'm paying for it, if I don't get the hours.
So I put that down as simultaneous programs and then credit for. Okay. Transfer policy, I felt like did not work well, and I'm gonna try to get some input from both administrative and teacher groups early in the year next year to,
If an email couldn't go out with everybody's name on it, that'd be great.
if An email what?
The email for the transfers didn't go out to everybody on the transfer list with everybody's name on it.
It would be good or it wouldn't be
It would
good?
be great that it did not.
That it did
happen.
not happen.
And it was an accident, but.
Yep.
I've
Unfortunately,
issues
accidents
there.
do
I've heard for years about St. Joe's transfer policy, long before I ever came, and to me it is a nightmare and it's ridiculous and it needs to be done away with, and so hopefully that's gonna be a
Well,
change.
it's changed, but I'm not sure if it's changed for the.
Well, what was
Gone.
frustrating to me, and I
Well, and
probably
you were
shouldn't speak because none of those people are in here, but it was changed exactly the way the elementary principals thought it should be, and then they griped about it.
And discriminating against elementary teachers versus elementary and
Well,
secondary.
I don't know that it's an issue of discrimination because there was well, in the first place, there's no inherent right to transfer. In the first place, our board policy says people can be moved whenever and wherever we
Right,
want.
that's,
But if we're working for equitability, or being equitable.
Well, all elementary were treated the same,
Right.
yeah.
But what makes the secondary teacher more valuable than elementary, where their principals can just agree after the deadline to transfer?
Know that it's a matter of value, it's a matter of how do people like their world to look. So,
it's just crazy.
I'm gonna put you on the transfer committee policy next.
Dude.
You can do that.
I will.
Do
And
it.
she'll bring her new baby.
I will.
And I'll come
On
and just
second
babysit.
thought.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, you better think that through, Brian.
I didn't even
I
like
have
my
good
own.
babysitters. It's okay.
You
You
got
can put me on
babysitters?
that committee.
Okay.
I'll come
Students
babysit.
in conflict, to engage or not to engage, that is the question.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I talked with Denise Kohlhauer, she is responsible for scheduling MANT training, and she had agreed to fund up to 2 more people per building who wanted to be MANT trained. So if you know people who are interested in that, by all means, have them contact her. Okay? I think, the basics of the MANT training are common sense, but they go much more in depth in the actual classes. So if we have a couple more people in the building who are trained to react appropriately to, an aggressive student, I think that would be a good thing.
Do we have people in every building that are, that?
My
are
understanding
trained?
is that we have 2, but I'm not sure that that's
2 in every
accurate.
building? Okay.
The administrator and another person is what I was told.
But what happens if both of those are gone, and then,
Kids can act up.
I know,
Right.
see, that's a little,
See, and that's the other question.
well, and you got the
They'll
big.
go.
You guys almost need 1 per floor or something.
Yeah, you guys are huge, I couldn't imagine only having.
And 1 per
But-
annex.
Logan, it was a requirement.
Yeah.
And-
Well, yeah, Webster, everybody's trained.
We don't have anybody at Ruby do that's being certified.
So Amy's gonna volunteer, aren't you?
Oh, Lord, I let mine expire.
So you need 4.
See, I wondered if we
Yeah.
did in every building, we might need to check that.
We're supposed
We
to do,
don't.
Denise has a list.
Denise has it.
Oh, does she? Okay.
Maybe they have you on the list, but it's lapsed.
I know mine's
Could
lapsed
be,
because I
yeah.
transferred from Colgan to Ruby do.
It could
Okay,
be
so
lapsed.
anyway, that, we're gonna try to get more people
I
MANT
think Lori
trained.
had a point that she wants to.
Cole Howard.
But to piggyback off on that, yes, it would be good to do that, but there still needs to be some kind of PD or training staff-wide
Yes.
for what do we do when there's a fight that breaks out. Because we have some teachers that will go, woo, and others who will rush in, not necessarily MANT trained. So there needs to be some
For example.
better guidelines.
Benchmark requirements.
Benchmark requirements, what is appropriate, because literally, there will be some people that say, I am not getting in the middle of that. And others who don't think twice and dive in. So-
And that is still gonna be probably their option as a human being
Sure.
and an individual, but at least if you put that benchmark there,
Right.
and you say, this is the expectation minimally,
Right.
that you have to intercede in an
Right.
event,
Right.
we do not want you to exceed that unless you're MAP trained or whatever.
Right.
Yes.
Or you're a school resource officer or whatever.
Yes.
That makes absolute sense.
Yes.
This way people have a sense of protection, they understand what is expected of them, they know that we need to know what the legal ramifications
Yes,
are.
and that's the big
Because
Boundaries.
if we do try to intervene to protect a student that is being beaten up by another student, are we legally liable? And that's really the question that
Right.
many of our members and our teachers and our staff have about this situation.
And that's a lot of the staff, why a lot of the staff members go back up and say, I am not touching that.
And it's a decision tree. I assume
Yeah.
that there's an A, B, C, if then, and so forth. And if you think that your personal safety is, then you go do something else to help break it up
Yes.
or disrupt or whatever's going on. And
I'll
I'm
try
sure
to
that's
put
out
something
there.
together that could be done in the pre-service days, the 3 or 4 days before school.
Because in the old days, we were all trained and, I'm talking in the old days, but yeah,
Okay.
everybody was trained.
Well,
in-
and that will, and just speaking from the insurance side, if we do that and we take this information back to our insurance provider carrier, that will help lower our liability and our risk factors and so forth, and essentially bring down the costs of our insurance, which are dramatic.
I mean, we go through the intruder training, so we know what to do when there's,
Right.
but, we all have to kind of act on instinct.
But
when there's
you'd
a
feel
student
more
fight.
comfortable if you
Right.
knew the expectation.
Yes. Sure.
You're only expected to do
Yes.
this much, and that would help in the building your size like we talked
Yes.
about, when people should do or
Just
not
like
do.
learning to drive. You
Yeah.
have options when you're driving, you have driver skills, you have certs, your own certification, whatever you want to call that. But you have choices to make and you know the risk factors, and it's just a comfort level that everybody should have in a situation like that.
Absolutely,
But still, even being MANT certified, you still are at risk of getting hurt.
Oh, sure you are.
I have a
It's always
lovely
gonna boil down to
scar
that
to
decision.
prove that.
Yeah, you
But
are, you do.
some staff members think because they're MANT certified that nothing's ever gonna happen.
I hockey checked a shoplifter in J.C. Penney because I knew the security people were chasing him and flattened him in there. I took that risk because I was an ex-retail person. I knew exactly what was going down. So I just clipped him as a hockey check. He hit the floor and security people picked him up, carted him off. Everything was fine. But that's just one of those instantaneous decisions that you make sometimes.
Right.
You didn't get sued?
What?
You didn't get sued?
No, they patted me on the back and they gave me a
No, I'm
gift
talking
card.
about the guy you knocked down.
Oh, shit, you get the heck out of there.
He
That way
probably
they
didn't
don't
even
who
know
you
who
are.
tripped him. He didn't know if he tripped himself.
Gave me some street cred with my sons too.
Okay, moving along.
Yeah, that's right.
Moving along.
The bookkeeper's salary range, the request was that bookkeepers be looked at somewhat like office managers versus other secretaries, that they be on a different range from the rest of the secretarial staff right now. Well, hopefully, we get a revenue source and all secretaries get moved to range 3. That's where the bookkeepers are as well. The request was to look at them being on range 4. How to deal with the sub shortage, if any of you got the answer to that, I'm all ears. What we've done so far, we've looked at our pay. We are very much in line with the surrounding areas. In fact, there's only one higher than us in the immediate vicinity. And people aren't going to drive 75 miles to be a sub. They're going to stay fairly local. So that's something we'll continue to look at. We're going to reach out more to Missouri Western and
That's
try
what
to
I was
hit their juniors and seniors and say, hey, if you got 60 hours, you're qualified to get a sub certificate. Maybe
Well,
we can
and I'll
get
tell you
some.
what they used to do, because when I was that junior and senior out there, they only wanted us, they didn't want you if you couldn't work at least 3 days a week. That used to be and I think there's still that perception about the St. Joe School District that but I was available 2 semesters on Monday and Friday, the 2 biggest days.
How
So they
long
went
ago
ahead and
was
made
that?
an exception for me
That she
because
was
I
in
could be here.
college.
When I was 7.
How long ago was that? Like 30 years?
What's this?
No, we're not talking to you. We're talking to these guys.
Yeah. You know, I have to put up with him at board meeting. I shouldn't have to put up with him here. But anyway, so
Try every
there is
day.
that perception, you know?
Wes is just
So
a
we
ray
might
of
want to make
sunshine.
sure that percent, because
Yeah.
we'll take them whatever days, don't you think?
Wes
Whatever
is-
days they're
Oh,
available.
absolutely. If they can
But
have
even,
one day every
didn't, you
3
were not in your head, had you heard that? You'd heard that too,
I
right?
remember when I was a sub.
I think a lot of districts require that, because I never subbed here, but
Right.
that was always one
But
of those.
because there's such a shortage and a need, we probably need to dispel that and say, you want to come sub, we'll take you whatever days you can sub. Especially those college kids who are going into education anyway.
Right. All right, so what else do we need to add to the list?
I had the elementary login for class and a half. I have yet to know an elementary school that's doing that on days we're short and we shove a whole nother class or half a class in
All
the
right.
classrooms. So that needs to be
I'm going to
communicated well
I'm going to
at
get
the beginning of the
something
year.
drawn up, and it's even going to have pictures.
Well, I just sent an email that says, when you have this, they don't know how to use time.
You know what I would almost say in that email, print this off.
Right, well,
and
they
put
didn't know
it-
it was an option. It wasn't a
Yeah.
voice as an option to the teachers.
Wasn't communicated.
We'll do
Yes.
it. What else?
I'm sure it went to administration. I don't know what happened. I'm just saying. As a teacher, I've never heard anything.
Even at the secondary level, because we often cover classes, our librarian, and I've even told my principal, you know, she didn't ask me to, but it irritates me. She keeps getting pulled to cover classes. Well, then she's not,
Shuts down the library.
not available to be in the library, so, it needs to be better communicated out. I don't, I know
And she
this
should have
isn't-
made a whole lot more money then, for $10 or whatever, is that what it is?
$10 an hour extra.
Yeah.
But I know the rotation sub days, I don't know if it's possible on the one day a week when, is the setup for the sped teachers, at least,
Friday.
yeah.
Or
For us,
whatever
it's
day.
Wednesday, one day a week, that's their meeting days,
Which they need.
and we all agree that that's the best schedule. But we need to have a floating sub in a building or something, because the teachers who are getting pulled, I mean, it's.
It's a domino effect, right?
It's a domino effect. We're scrambling to find somebody to cover our class,
And what school is this?
Truman,
Truman.
but it's gonna
Well, I
happen
mean,
in
it
all
It's
of
happening
them.
probably in a lot of.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
It's everywhere, you
One
know,
thing
we
I would
gotta-
suggest is that you pick the absolute worst day of the week to do that. If you want to have a better chance of having a sub, don't do it on Friday. Don't
Yeah,
do it
Don't,
on
on Monday,
I know
yeah,
we're
make
on
sure no
Wednesday,
meeting
but-
days are Fridays and Mondays.
And see, our special ed teachers are never pulled to cover class or anybody, because we don't do that.
I don't know if that's something that,
they're pulling special
Medicaid
ed.
money
I thought
can,
she said
you
library.
know, the sped
She said
Medicaid
she
money
did.
can be used for,
Why would you pull a special
I
ed?
don't know, probably, okay.
Never heard of
It's been a few years
They
since
do
I've
it all the
taught in
time,
that
ask
world,
Amy.
but.
They pull special ed teachers?
Yeah, ask her.
Some
Somebody.
schools, not
Yeah.
all
Pull-
schools.
pull
My
special
school would never
education
do that.
teachers to fill classes, and then your special ed kids don't have the, and that's, you're dealing with
And that's not
legal
every
issues.
school though, I want
No,
you
I
to
know
understand
that.
that. That does
I know,
not
but
work
I'm
every
Never pull a
saying, yeah.
special ed teacher.
It happens.
Borderline on the library.
I've covered more classes this year than actually being a para in the class I'm supposed to be in. But
Do we have-
sadly, I didn't have the option on Time Clock Plus to always do the clock in thing.
Are you a para or are you
I'm a para,
you're a para?
yeah,
But
Okay,
she's
that's-
been a
that's
sub
different.
more than she's been a
been a
parent.
para.
But it isn't different,
Well, I mean,
because those
I
parents
thought
are
she
as
meant they were
important.
pulling the
Yeah.
teachers.
They have pulled sped teachers.
They're pulling sped teachers out of sped classes.
Yes.
Yes,
And that's probably more predominant.
And
Are there some
most of
metrics
you know
to
sped kids don't do well with
empirically
change.
look at this? 'Cause
Well, no, that's,
from a private sector side, I would say we've got a need to build in a safety factor into the sub program to where you actually exceed what you know you're gonna do just because of these issues
Right.
that you're talking
Hire
about
everybody.
on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
Because it's costing us one way or the other as a district,
Right.
right? In coverage, quality, education.
well, I'm gonna say this. Every
Services.
district struggles with finding stubs. This is not uncommon for St. Joe. I mean, it's not uncommon for school district to find subs because it's not a full-time job. It's, you're waiting on the phone hoping somebody calls you.
Maybe we need
And we're
more
not a major
full-time
metro
subs.
area,
I
which
mean,
makes a difference too.
Revenue source,
I know.
it's in the plans.
I know. But
Revenue
when we
source.
have that, we definitely need
All the more
some
reason why we
more.
gotta campaign for a revenue source, people. You gotta get out there and get the votes. Okay, I
A
said that,
full-time
my
sub
political
costs
statement.
approximately $20,000 more than a sub who would come in every other day. sporadic.
Well, and there's a lot of subs that are here that aren't full-time subs too.
Are there any
See.
third-party provider services that
And
dwell
then
in this
and then
realm
you
that
pay-
you get
just
some
add
assistance
10
with?
Yeah, 10% to your cost and you
Yeah,
still.
you don't, we don't wanna
fill-
go there.
Wasn't
And
talking along
there's
those
some
lines.
legal ramifications with retirees and that too. Currently, the
So you-
state's.
I'm
not
just far
good
as
for-
helping build your pool
Right,
of available people.
Right.
I understand.
Okay.
All right,
Extra
What else?
duties, evaluation, that's not on there.
I've
Like
gotten about
National Honor Society.
10 to 12 people who have responded with proposals. I'm assuming there will be more coming.
End of year's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get
And that's why I
everything.
I think I put September
September.
15th as the
Yeah.
deadline to get them. And I'll send that out again in the fall.
Yes,
Get
please
back.
do.
And I just wanna see who's taking care of the mascots. Did you read his? She didn't read your attachment.
Apparently not.
Go back and read the
I
attachment.
shuffled it
Well,
out.
And that was the toned down version. I wrote a really
Really good one. And they toned it down. And I said, our staff would have appreciated your original one.
Especially at the end of the year.
It came on the
everybody's-
thing that it said, turn it in, and then there
Bridget
was a
said-
test.
on the train, yeah, I've read
It was an example of like what someone
Yeah,
would write. Take the
I can
time
only
to read
imagine
it, it's worth it.
Dr. Crosby talked about,
Exactly.
trauma, like trauma training, like the trauma group, that when a teacher's experienced, a faculty member's experienced trauma in class, there's a support group that goes. We've mentioned that a couple times.
Okay, so to make sure I'm understanding you, so when a trauma has happened, whether it's in their personal life or in their school life, that there's a group who will go to make sure that the teacher, I think we do a decent job of covering the kids, do we not?
Yeah, I mean, a little
seems
bit.
like
I mean, I think there's some things of debriefing, sometimes debriefing kids, without giving too much information, but something happens in someone's class that
So
there's.
tell me then the focus of what you're saying.
Probably, this was probably thinking more along the lines of a teacher in the classroom, something, obviously, I think we support, obviously when something's traumatic happen, we don't always know what's going on in personal lives and stuff, but something's happened in class, and we're kind of, there's a group that goes to that teacher,
But are you saying that for extra duty, or you're just saying
No,
to
this would be
incorporate
like
that?
when
We
an
need
administrator.
Yeah.
Some kind of a policy or
Yeah.
protocol that
Yeah.
allows for individuals, whether it's counselors, administrators, somebody within the
Or other
building to
teachers.
be able to go, and they know it's their duty, their job, to go and check on that individual after
sure
a
that
traumatic
everything's okay.
experience has happened in the classroom, whether it's a student situation, assault, something to that effect, that the teacher is still needs to be in the classroom with their kids, but mentally, they need somebody to check with them, and there's been a few situations
Or have
this
somebody
year.
come in and if they need to step out.
Right.
to
Yeah.
collect
They need
Because that
some
themselves.
allows
time to
them
get
to do
yourself
that.
together.
And obviously, we can't guarantee that we're gonna know if something in a personal life is gonna happen, but this is predominantly, what Paul and I have talked about, is predominantly geared towards a situation that has occurred in the classroom.
Right.
Okay.
And that's so silly, because you think, gosh, I would think the administrator would do that. That's just a human thing that you would do, but and it's not even against administration,
No,
it's
not
just
at
that we're all so
Yeah.
busy in the school building that sometimes you just don't, so if we have a plan, it makes it more, in the front of our.
My, my sister retired from Lee Summit North, but they had, and I'd have to ask her what it's called now. But they had a policy and the ability of X number of hours of counseling, no questions asked, that was part of their benefit package. And for any reason.
Did we have something like that here?
We
still
do.
We kind of did.
We
do.
Where is that listed?
Oh, I need counseling, oh, wait a minute, I
No,
don't get paid
seriously,
anything.
in the wellness, part of the wellness package that we
Okay.
have, is there's a number that you can call if you need, and you can have, I think it's up to 8 counseling sessions.
But
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
That was one of the things we talked about, the nurses, like debriefing the
Yeah,
staff
and that'll be
on
good.
the
Yeah.
insurance policy.
Yeah.
It's more
There
like
again,
letting
making
them
sure
know.
people.
That, and
That's part of
recommending
what's
it to
supposed to
people who
happen
might
at the.
need it.
Right, and
This
just,
August.
just, again, that communication piece of making it out there, whether it's a little flip chart of, if you need this, do this,
Isn't there something that in the new insurance that we're doing, is that the new carrier, they also have they can contact an attorney for wills and different things? I was thinking that was
That
part
would
of
be in
that
the,
new.
that would be in the supplementals.
Yeah, that's in the property casualty, not in
Yeah,
the,
the cafeteria plan.
Yeah, and I think that we just need to do more education on that so that
well, that's out of cost.
people understand.
Yeah.
Other items for the list.
High school, middle school, whatever level of school you want, late work policy, which I know has been in some discussion, but I would like to make sure that I don't want that to die away and not be looked at again. I know Dr. Hubbock was discussing that with the board the other day. But we need to have some discussions on that, I think.
What was it? I'm
Absentee
sorry.
fall into
Late work
that?
policy, absenteeism,
When they're
and
absent.
all of that together.
But to piggyback on that, even, where do we cut off accepting late work when it's just plain late work?
Not just absentee. but
Not just
late.
Yeah, not
absentee.
just
So a whole new late work policy.
Whole
I
new-
think,
that's
and
a
you
big
need to
period
communicate that to
issue.
Dr. Hubbock while he's trying to put together
And Dr.
something to bring to
I spoke
policy.
with him already.
Just,
And he said that he was interested in getting a group together
proposal.
Uh-huh.
to really look at it
Right.
from different levels
Good.
of our staff, and I hope that he does that, because that's a
And
fantastic
you
idea.
know, he's been visiting, pulling staff members aside off and on, visiting with lots of things, so I trust he probably will do that. You know, I just really like that perspective of how he does his job and that he does consult teachers.
He talks to teachers, he brings in
He
parents, he
does.
talks to students.
Yeah. You know, we went through the era of we couldn't fail a kid, we couldn't give zeros, you know, so we'd be at the end of a 9-week quarter and accepting assignments from week 1 and 2.
I know, ooh.
And it's
Don't
ridiculous.
even let me go there.
But
I know.
there are enough of us old hands that, you know, we've worked under that mantra for so long. And we have a generation of students who come to expect it. And it's going to be years.
And if the policy says that, they have
I know.
every right to expect it, but you better be changing your policy.
So, yeah,
What else?
All right, I've got a few other items here. We don't have to discuss them in length right now
Yeah,
at
let's
all.
just get them on the list.
Because I know we want to go. But honors and non-honors prerequisite for high school courses. There's been some question about why, like, students who don't do well in a non-honors class sign up for an honors class. There used to be, to my knowledge, there used to be a grade requirement or a testing, you had to test into it, something like that for honors courses. The question is, are we setting kids up for failure?
Right.
Or are we setting them up for something they're capable of doing? So that's the question on that one.
Okay,
Go to that. On
Oh, this,
the elementary,
oh,
what is extra duties?
Oh, yeah,
We
and
need to look
yeah.
at the elementary extra duties. There's a vast difference between title and non-title. Title has parent involvement monthly or twice a month that every teacher is required to participate in those activities. And I understand the value of that. There are also still buildings, and I know Dr. Norman has talked to some of the principals that are meeting heavy. They have a meeting literally over everything that could be an email. There's something going on almost every night of the week. We have to cap that.
yes.
We have to stop requiring so much after contract time.
Or pay him.
Or pay
Yes.
them, because there is such a contrast between buildings. I went from Humboldt to Hyde, and Humboldt had parent involvement, but our principal was very cognizant of her time at Humboldt. There are other buildings where principals required you to be at every meeting, everything. There was no juggling around, there was no movement, there was no this group would do this group would do that. We had to be there all the time, and secondary, that's not even heard of. So,
And if they are doing something like that, they're paid for
they're
it.
getting paid. It's like gate duty. I mean, they get paid for gate duty. Why aren't we getting, I mean, so.
Aren't you getting paid for your third
And
grade
that's-
math night that you have to be at?
Right.
And that's just one good example.
That is just
of-
and there's
There's so many, the list goes on. But that is something that we do need to discuss.
We have to get that brought down.
Those
That'll help
discrepancies.
teacher morale.
Oh,
That'll help
huge.
pulling people into your title buildings. Some people just want out because
They're worn out.
they're tired. They're there every night at 5:30 or 6 almost.
Not only are they worn out, they don't have a life.
No. So we've got to back, and that's something we really need to, and it needs to be enforced. I know Dr. Norman has talked to some principals about that, but there are still principals not letting go of their old practices, even after being switched. So we have to put something somewhere, so they have to.
what else?
Sorry.
I think that takes care of my list for this group.
Anybody else?
Oh man, I'm going to the superintendent's dialogue next time, because I have a feeling that's where that rest of that list is going.
All right. Well, I think it's
I missed it
probably
last month, I'm showing up.
time for us to disperse. Those of you who are off contract now, have a great summer. Those of you who are doing summer school, have a great summer school and then a great summer. Appreciate all of your work.
We survived.
This was a good first year, and we've definitely got something to build off here.
Yep, we'll just get better and better.
All right, thank you.